is it basically with the advance of technology, the state trying to protect themselves against the rise of the sovereign individual?
Yeah, yes. I mean, we can go back to John Stuart Mill, who said the central portions of history, the most consistent theme is the battle between liberty and authority. And it's really insiders and outsiders, and there is an commercial insider racket
Mm.
taking place. And it's what I would call the NGO industrial sector, the military industrial arms complex.
Yeah.
It's the multilateral agencies like the World Health Organization, the United Nations, the Asian Development Bank, blah, blah, blah. It's the 3 or 4 major global owners of listed equities, State Street, BlackRock,
Mm.
Vanguard. It's the tech bros up until Elon revolted.
Peter Thiel.
And yeah, and these guys got together and they basically said, so for example, if you just take, I don't want to go on and on about COVID, but I mean, at the peak of the COVID hysteria, I would call state sponsored terrorism, between the Commonwealth Department of Health, New South Wales Department of Health, Victoria, they were spending 50 million a month advertising COVID fear porn.
Yeah.
So you could not turn on the radio or a television without getting smashed of there has been an outbreak at the Bunnings, Broadmeadow, and a whole suburb in panic, but the government was paying 50 million a month to get to advertise COVID fear. And so, we libertarians wanted to send a candidate onto Sky News in the lead up to the election. And, the producer of Sky News says, just understand if you mention one thing about the vaccine, you'll never be invited on Sky News ever again. And there was this blanket hegemonic, and this is the deal. And all I'm saying is that deal is taking place. If you look in, say, Victorian newspapers, there's like 20 Victorian, long-standing mastheads of Victorian, the Riverlands, Orchard Bugle, or, of newspaper titles, struggling as newspapers around the world, their revenue model was declining. So then the Victorian government under Dan Andrews just goes and said, okay, well, we will buy a full page ad in every Victorian regional and rural newspaper every week as a pure subsidy because of our concern for diversity in media. Okay. So you can imagine the editor of that paper, he knows his single best advertising customer is Daniel Andrews.
Mm.
And so then when Daniel Andrews says, we want to lock down a city for 2 years, how do you boys feel about it? Right? They're kind of looking at the bottom line, looking at their client list. Say, yeah, Dan, we think that might be quite a good idea. Why don't we lock down the whole state for a couple of years? It's a collusive relationship.
So you've just mentioned this and articulated it quite well. My most important question is, does Bitcoin fix this?
Well, you boys know more about crypto world than I do. But I will say to you that whatever, the magic of crypto is this distributed ledger. In terms of the political, it's the fact that the platform is not owned by Tech Bro, right? It is a genuinely kind of democratic payment institution platform, and it's one of the reasons why it's been so vigorously resisted. I think it was it Diamond, who was the JP Morgan guy who came out and said it was a Ponzi.
Yeah.
And so what happens was that you get this this evolution of the idea taking place where first they say it's it's absolutely ridiculous, stupid, corrupt, whatever, and then they say it's when it continues to get traction, there's a sort of a second phase where they say something like, oh well,
first they ignore you, then they try and tear you down, and
then they say it was my idea in the first place, or then they produce a government-owned crypto. And I understand this piece of legislation which has just gone through the US Congress last night, which sort of lays the foundation for a US government-backed crypto. And there's a lot of, apprehension about it. But I say, yeah, crypto, I think, is a, the banking cartel is absolutely central to the deep state. And I know your guest last week, in your last episode, was your South African legal academic, I forget his
Andy
name,
Shomlo.
Shonlo, was saying, why is it that the 4 Australian banks have got the highest return on equity of any banks in the world? And the reason is because the governments and the banks are essentially government departments, right? They're arms of the executive government. And the government says, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and build a regulatory moat around you, Big Four, so that nobody else can possibly get in and compete with you, right? And we're going to make it an incredibly complex regulatory moat. And you would think the banks hate the complexity of regulation, but actually they love it because it keeps all the other bastards out. And, these guys, then the government says, all right, we want to mandate a woke agenda on anti-racism, okay? And the banks realize they actually only have one customer, and it's not you or me. It's the regulator is their only customer. And it doesn't matter how badly behaved an Australian bank is. They may recruit payments from 30,000 dead people for years. They'll never lose their banking license, okay, because those 4 are part of the infrastructure of the state. And in exchange for favours and backstretching and regulatory protection from APRA, from ASIC, from the Treasury, from the Reserve Bank, it's you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. And so the Australian economy is not really an economy. It's really the rum core, just 225 years later.
And that's what I think. Like for people out there watching, I mean, we've done a lot of these podcasts, spoken to a lot of different people. We've done a lot of reading, and I think being able to, in some way, and this is not advice, but in some way be able to control your own property, all right, however it is, and the ultimate we need people out there that are ultimately truth-seeking, and this is why I'm such a fan of Elon Musk, because I think whether you love him, hate him, whether you think he's trying to take over the world or not, probably is, right? He's trying to create, what he's trying to create with XAI is ultimately truth-seeking, so that, I mean, that's the most important thing. You want to be able to get to the truth of all these things that we're talking about.